History is a story we tell ourselves. It's a timeline we've carefully constructed, pieced together from pottery shards, crumbling manuscripts, and rusted swords. We have this comforting, linear progression: the Stone Age, the Bronze Age, the Iron Age, the slow march of human ingenuity. But what if that timeline is wrong? What if, scattered throughout the Earth's crust, there are clues that suggest our ancestors were far more advanced, or their story far more complicated than we ever imagined? Welcome to the world of out-of-place artifacts, or OOPArts. These are the objects that defy chronology. They are the things that shouldn't exist, the technological or artistic glitches in the matrix of our past. They are the anomalies that challenge textbooks, infuriate mainstream archaeologists, and fuel the imaginations of rogue historians. Today, we're not just looking at ancient mysteries, we're investigating the cold cases of history, the evidence that sits uncomfortably in museum drawers, whispering a different version of events. Our first artifact was found not in a desert tomb, but at the bottom of the sea. In 1901, sponge divers off the coast of the Greek island of Antikythera stumbled upon the wreck of a Roman cargo ship. Among the statues and amphorae, they recovered a lump of corroded bronze and wood that seemed unremarkable. It was set aside for years, a curious piece of wreckage, but when archaeologists finally took a closer look, they realized they were holding something that should not have existed for another 1,000 years. This was the Antikythera Mechanism. Through painstaking analysis, including advanced X-ray tomography, scientists have revealed it to be an incredibly complex, hand-powered mechanical computer. It consisted of at least 30 interlocking bronze gears, housed in a wooden case about the size of a shoebox. Its dials and pointers could predict astronomical positions, eclipses, and even the cycles of the ancient Olympic Games. It was a calendar, a planetarium, and an astronomical calculator, all in one. This level of technological sophistication is staggering. We are talking about a device with a complexity comparable to an 18th century Swiss clock, but it dates from the 2nd century BCE. The knowledge required to build such a mechanism, precise gearing, a deep understanding of astronomical cycles, was thought to be lost to the world until the scientific revolution in Europe. The Antikythera Mechanism single-handedly rewrites the history of technology. It proves that the ancient Greeks possessed engineering capabilities we never attributed to them. It wasn't magic, it was mechanics of the highest order. So, why is it a lone survivor? How much other advanced technology from the ancient world has simply rusted away to nothing, lost forever to time? If the Antikythera Mechanism challenges our view of ancient engineering, our next artifact hints at something even more shocking: ancient electricity. In the 1930s, during excavations near Baghdad, a German archaeologist discovered a series of peculiar clay jars. Each jar was about the size of a fist, with a copper cylinder inside, and within that cylinder, an iron rod. The top was sealed with asphalt or bitumen, which acted as an insulator. The iron rod was visibly corroded, as if by an acidic agent. To Wilhelm König, the archaeologist who studied them, they looked eerily familiar. He proposed a radical theory. These were ancient electric batteries. If you filled the jar with an acidic electrolyte, like vinegar or grape juice, the chemical reaction between the copper and the iron would generate a small electrical potential difference, about 1 volt of electricity. The artifacts, dating from the Parthian period, around 200 BCE to 200 CE, became known as the Baghdad Batteries. The obvious question is, what would an ancient civilization need with a volt of electricity? The most popular theory is for electroplating. depositing a thin layer of one metal, like gold, onto the surface of another. There are examples of ancient gilded objects where the gold layer is mysteriously thin and even, a result difficult to achieve by traditional methods like fire gilding. Could the Babylonians or Parthians have been electroplating? Skeptics argue that no wires or conductors have been found with the jars, and that they could simply be storage vessels for sacred scrolls. But when replicas have been built, they work. They produce electricity. The Baghdad Battery remains an enigma, a simple, elegant, and functional device that stands as a quiet, shocking testament to a potential lost science. Now we travel from the certain to the highly controversial. In 1961, 3 rockhound enthusiasts were searching for geodes near Olancha, California, in the Coso Mountains. They found a nodule that seemed promising, but when they cut it open, they didn't find crystals. Instead, they found what appeared to be a mechanical device. At its center was a porcelain cylinder surrounding a magnetic metal rod. The whole thing was encased in a hardened clay shell, which in turn was surrounded by a hexagonal layer of what looked like wood that had been transformed into another mineral. It looked, for all the world, like a modern spark plug. The so-called Coso artifact immediately became a sensation among creationists and ancient astronaut theorists. Here was definitive proof, they claimed, of either an advanced prehistoric civilization or visitors from the stars. A spark plug encased in a rock that by geological standards had to be hundreds of thousands of years old. It was the ultimate out-of-place artifact. The mystery, however, didn't last long under scientific scrutiny. Geologists pointed out that the hardened clay was a common concretion, a lump of minerals that can form around a foreign object relatively quickly, in a matter of decades, not millennia. Collectors of antique spark plugs quickly identified the object inside as a 1920s-era champion spark plug, exactly the kind used in Model T Fords. The hexagonal wood was likely the spark plug's corroded hex nut, and the mineral buildup was a classic example of how iron and other materials can degrade and become encased. The Coso artifact is a perfect case study in how an OOPArt can be created not by ancient engineers, but by a combination of mistaken context and rapid geological processes. It's a reminder that while we must keep an open mind, we must also apply rigorous skepticism. Let's return to the ancient world, to a discovery that soars into the realm of speculation. In 1898, during an excavation of a tomb in Saqqara, Egypt, a small wooden object was unearthed. It was dated to approximately 200 BCE and was catalogued simply as a bird figurine. It was placed in a box with other bird models and largely forgotten in the basement of the Cairo Museum. Decades later, an Egyptologist named Khalil Messiha was going through the collection and noticed this particular bird was different. It didn't have legs. It didn't have the characteristic painted feathers of other bird models. What it did have was a distinct vertical tail plane, like that of an airplane. This object, now known as the Saqqara bird, has wings that are angled and shaped not like a bird's, which are designed for flapping, but like the airfoils of an aircraft designed to generate lift. Proponents of the theory that it is a model of a glider point to this precise engineering. They argue that the missing tail fin, which would be essential for stability, could have been lost or broken off. To test the idea, aerodynamics experts have built scaled-up balsa wood models of the Saqqara bird. When launched with a small weighted attachment for balance, the model does, in fact, fly. It is a functional glider. The mainstream explanation is that it is most likely a stylized bird, perhaps a falcon, or even a child's toy. The vertical tail, they suggest, could represent a bird's tail feathers held upright. But the absence of legs remains puzzling. Could it be a coincidence that an ancient artist carved a toy that just happens to have perfect aerodynamic properties? Or does the sakkara bird represent a glimpse of lost knowledge? Was it the result of an ancient inventor observing the principles of lift, a mere curiosity, or a scale model of something much more profound? Unlike the Koso artifact, the sakkara bird's mystery is not so easily dismissed. Some artifacts are mysterious not for their material, but for their message. The Voynich manuscript is perhaps the most famous unsolved puzzle in the world. It is a book, approximately 240 pages long, written entirely in an unknown script and an unknown language. Its pages are filled with bizarre, unearthly botanical illustrations of plants that don't exist, astronomical diagrams of constellations we can't identify, and drawings of tiny, nacked women bathing in strange, interconnected green pools. It has defied every attempt at decipherment by the world's top cryptographers, including code breakers from both world wars. The book's history is as shadowy as its contents. It first appears in the historical record in the late 16th century, but carbon dating has confirmed the vellum it's written on dates to the early 15th century. It is named after Wilfrid Voynich, a Polish book dealer who purchased it in 1912. Since then, it has been the subject of endless theories. Is it a secret alchemical text? A sophisticated hoax designed to fool a wealthy patron? The language of a lost civilization? The work of a lone, brilliant, but unwell mind? Recent computational analyses have suggested that the text has patterns consistent with a genuine language, not random gibberish. But the meaning remains locked away. The Voynich manuscript is a different kind of out-of-place artifact. It's not a machine that seems too advanced. It's a document that seems to come from another reality entirely. It is a stark reminder that the past is a foreign country, and there are entire systems of thought, entire ways of seeing the world that may be completely lost to us. It is the ultimate symbol of the gaps in our knowledge. So, what do we make of these objects? The Antikythera Mechanism and the Baghdad Battery suggest that flashes of advanced technology may have appeared and been lost, perhaps because the knowledge was held by a secretive few and never widely disseminated. The sakkara bird reminds us that ancient people were brilliant observers of nature, and their innovations might be misinterpreted by our modern eyes. The Koso artifact is a cautionary tale about the need for critical thinking, and the Voynich manuscript humbles us, showing that some doors to the past may remain permanently closed. These artifacts shouldn't exist, and yet they do. They force us to question the smooth narrative of progress. They suggest that history is not a straight line, but perhaps a spiral, or a tree with many broken branches. They don't necessarily prove the existence of Atlantis or alien visitors, but they do prove one thing for certain. Our ancestors were far more intelligent, creative, and ingenious than we often give them credit for. The human drive to invent, to explore, and to understand the universe is a constant. These strange objects are not just curiosities, they are invitations. Invitations to look deeper, to question harder, and to remember that the story of humanity is still being written, and we have likely only uncovered the first few chapters. If you're finding these insights valuable, make sure to subscribe to the channel. By hitting that subscribe button, you're not just supporting this work, you're ensuring you don't miss our future videos, where we'll continue to break down complex topics into clear, actionable ideas. Your subscription is the best way to build a library of knowledge together.